What up, everybody? Blake the Scholar Magic, and today I have a sweet deck tech for you. This is Arwen, the Mortal Queen. She's a three-color, one generic, one forest, one plains, legendary creature, Elf Noble. Arwen, Mortal Queen enters the battlefield with an indestructible counter on it. One generic, remove an indestructible counter from Arwen. Another target creature gains indestructible until end of turn. Put a 1/1 counter and a lifelink counter on that creature, and a 1/1 counter and a lifelink counter on Arwen. So she's not indestructible herself, but she does put an indestructible counter on herself when she does enter the battlefield. And that's actually a really interesting characteristic. It allows you to duplicate or add on more of those counters. That can come in really handy, especially if you can add more of those, find ways to add more of those counters on her, because she can simply dish those out by paying 1 mana to another creature. They can gain indestructible till end of turn. If she has an additional counter that she put on herself, then she'll also retain that indestructibility because she'll still have an indestructible counter on herself. So she just accrues these. That's really the game plan of this deck, is to accrue more indestructible counters. And there is ways to do that, and we can kind of discuss the ways that she does that. And she's a 2/2 with stats. So the game plan that we went for on this particular deck, it was a Wrath. We definitely want to kind of take advantage of her indestructible counter, meaning that destroy effects are basically, she's immune to those. She can get through those. Wrath effects are really interesting. They don't target creatures specifically. So if a creature has hexproof or shroud, these can simply get through those because they don't target specifically. They just hit everything at once. So really interesting cards in general, like the destroy all creature effects. They can't be regenerated. These are actually like creature hate. You've heard of like graveyard hate. Like, you can apply that to these cards as well. These are simply creature hate cards. For the very low cost of 4, this was actually printed in Alpha of 1993. It's the very first Wrath, as we would consider that, or board wipe is the term for this, where it will just basically remove all the creatures that do not have indestructible or some other form of protection, such as like a shield counter. In fact, even cards that grant protection from colors, they don't get through Wraths either. So if you have like a Giver of Runes or a Mother of Runes and you give protection to white to something, for the end of turn, the Wrath will still hit it. That would only help for targeting. Basically, the Wrath would still destroy those creatures. So really interesting how it gets through most of those effects and state-based actions. It literally just destroys everything, except Arwen, if she does have that indestructible counter on her. And like I said, you want to accrue more counters on her. We'll talk about that in a moment. One of the cards that are going to probably be really nice for you in general is a card like such as Contractual Safeguard. And why this is a really effective card is because what it's going to do is it's going to take a counter that's already on one of your creatures, say an indestructible counter, and put it on all your other creatures as well, which is really nice. It would also put on a shield if you cast this during your main phase. So you can put on another shield counter, which is like a one-time indestructibility kind of option, which is some nice other insurance. In addition, if she has an indestructible counter, you can just dish it out to your other creatures on the battlefield, which is a nice option, because especially if you're going to be paying a decent amount of board wipes. So probably like the most popular board wipe to run with Arwen, the Mortal Queen, is Damning Verdict. Destroy all creatures with no counters on them. So our main point is to kind of put counters on Arwen, have her dish out that counter as a one-time indestructible till end of turn. They'll also get a 1/1 buff and lifelink till end of turn as well. I do believe the 1/1 counter does stick around. Oh, they actually keep the lifelink counter too. That's crazy. So she gets, they both get a, not only does the creature get a 1/1 counter and lifelink, but Arwen does herself. So that's really nuts. So they all get like the lifelink counter too, not just the 1/1 counter. That's really cool. So yeah, just more amazing stuff for Arwen. You're just going to love that about her. And her ability to do this and put counters on other creatures would help get through a damning verdict, because they simply would have a counter on them, and they would not be destroyed. So really cool card there. Here's Split Up. This is a new one from Dustmourne. I just really like the cost. I was really attracted by the cost of this spell. It's very situational. You can kind of use it to your advantage to maybe take out a few creatures that are kind of in your way, maybe some tokens that were made by your opponent during their turn. You can simply just choose the untapped, creature feature, get rid of those blockers, and then just swing in with Arwen. It's really nice, a really nice option. Just kind of really helps her get through all the rubbish. Really, Vanquish the Horde is like that. Also, really going to be very you can think of like the baseline for this. If everyone has a creature on the board, then it's just the cost of a wrath. And if there's more than each opponent has one more creature, and you have a creature yourself, it's going to be simply that easier to cast. It's probably only going to be 2 planes to play this, because there are going to be like 6 creatures on the battlefield. So this spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature on the battlefield. Destroy all creatures. That's a really nice option for us. And yeah, I just kind of, like I said, I just enjoy the cost of this. It just seems like a very nice cost. In addition, I did do some research, and it seems that overall meta up, I'd say since 2021. I kind of did some research on this, that there's just a significant amount of more creatures in decks. The increase is pretty substantial for creature. We're in a very creature heavy meta right now. Overall, even the newer sets, you can even see like they're very creature driven, like the Badgermole Cub, Quantum Riddler, the creature quality, even Ragavan. These creatures are just really strong, in general. The creature meta is king right now. And it is actually a very creature ripe meta. If you do kind of want to try to fight the good fight, if you're a control mage, I do think Arwen would be fun for you. I think it's kind of a gotcha card. It kind of reminds me of I think her name is Stella. She was one of the band commanders that has life gain. I remember seeing that some opponents like doing kind of just like control stuff with value engines. And I think Arwen's probably a really good one because she has indestructibility. So yeah, overall, I just kind of really enjoy it. I think it's really cool, and I think you'll like it too. Worth a try, right? So here's Metastatic Evangel, and I was just like really fond of this particular card. I think it's like one of the better proliferate cards that I've seen. It curves out really well with Arwen. So what you're going to want to do is just play this as soon as possible. And then go ahead and I'd honestly prefer, even if you're curving out with like a Delighted Halfling, just to like have Metastatic Evangel come down turn 2, because you're really going to enjoy having Arwen have that extra proliferate counter on her. And that's what the Evangel does. So whenever another non-token creature enters this battlefield under your control, such as Arwen, you proliferate. So you have this on the battlefield, Arwen hits the board, and then you choose to proliferate. You're going to proliferate Arwen's indestructibility counter, so she has 2. And like I said, you're going to really want to start this train up, because dishing those out, basically granting an extra life to one of your creatures, especially if we're going to be playing some decent amount of board wipes, it's just going to be good for our overall game plan. And will also just be like nice insurance. Maybe your opponent is playing board wipes too. And come turn 4, you can just kind of hold up mana and just kind of protect your Arwen, protect another creature on the battlefield. It just kind of works out in your favor like that. Okay, before we move into the other proliferate creatures, I just wanted to talk about Lost Jite, because it probably is one of my favorite cards. It goes into any of my like creature-centered decks that kind of like to accrue value. And I just kind of am amazed that I can kind of merge these kind of game plans together and have a card such as Lost Jite, because you can imagine that if you swing in with a card such as this, and it looks like we just have to deal combat damage in general, this thing will actually put a counter on itself. And you can imagine that if we have a card like Metastatic Evangel on the battlefield, and we're starting to go to town with our GT, then we're going to start proliferating counters onto this. And you could imagine that that would be very good for us. We can start dictating who blocks with the option to remove a counter to have a target creature not block. We can remove a counter to untap target land. We can also get into our 1/1 counter synergy by removing a counter and putting a counter on a equipped creature. This is like a Prismari command for artifacts. You're just getting all these modes, and you're actually able to abuse it because you're proliferating a lot. So that's what we really took this deck as, like a very heavy proliferate angle. So Umezawa's Jite, in addition, you can imagine just putting counters on this and starting to proliferate. You're going to be able to start removing counters freely, buffing up creatures, removing other creatures with that -1/-1, maybe perhaps gaining life. I mean, the sky's the limit, and I'm telling you, this deck will proliferate. This is an amazing card for proliferate. I honestly think maybe Staff of Completion is running up in my card of the year. Just playing with this the other day, I was like, this is like very exciting. You have like a mana option here, which is just really nice in general. You can just add mana of any color for the 2 life. You can proliferate for 3 life, which we're going to be doing like 99% of the time. But hey, you can even draw a card. So maybe it's like a 50-50 thing because cards are really good too, right? And then for 5 mana, you can untap it and do it all over again. And that's just life. You're not paying mana into that, you're paying life. Just remember that. So what a versatile card. This card should be like $10. So I think it plays like a $10 card. So look out for Staff of Completion for the stonks. We'll do like a little stonks list here. We'll put Staff on there. I think the Lost Jite is up there too. I think this is kind of up there too, for pretty much like your kind of investment cards, because it's just, look at it. I mean, you're proliferating for 3 life, like on demand. So it's just amazing. Evolution Sage is like that too. It's just like, it isn't a particular color though, so you can't play it in every deck. But Evolution Sage is just, oh my god, this card is crazy. Whenever land enters the battlefield and your control proliferate. So just absolutely amazing there too. The fact that you're just going to be proliferating based on lands coming on the battlefield is really strong. Here's Norn's Choir Master. This one will, as Arwen attacks, will proliferate, or if she comes into the battlefield, will simply proliferate. So you get that double, which we love. So we just love we love a nice little 5/4 angel in the first place. And then as Arwen is attacking on curve with the Norn's Choir Master, we're going to be proliferating. And that's our squad too. We're probably going to have counters on our stuff by then. It's going to be great. Here's the Grateful Apparition. And once again, just like that amazing 2-spot, like your Metastatic Evangel, your Grateful Apparition, these cards that like are very like very low key risk reward. They are all reward. I mean, you're simply going to play this on turn 2. Then you're going to play Arwen, and you're going to be proliferating an indestructible counter and getting your train going. And that's really the key to this, is kind of to keep parity with those indestructible counters, not losing the counter, like unless you're like really jonesing on some cards. That could be like the only reason I would see that you like would ever do such of that, or if like you had to protect your stuff. But other than that, you're just going to want to start accruing those indestructible counters, just because they're just very valuable. And they just give a lot of value as you bring in your counter synergy. So that's a lot of proliferate from the Grateful Apparition. The Bloated Contaminator will do this as well with a Trample. So just another nice little option there. Trample Toxic 1. Whenever a Bloated Contaminator deals combat damage to a player, proliferate. So we just like absolutely love this card as well. And yeah, that's at the 3 mana spot. So it actually will start putting Toxic on a player too. So if we can proliferate those counters as well, which is kind of dangerous. But I don't really think we'll ever really. It depends. Like, it's a possibility. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but usually we're not going to Toxic out somebody. All right, so here's Karn's Bastion. What an amazing land. We'll add colorless mana, or for 4 and a tap, you'll proliferate. So just fantastic there. Just a land option that does the proliferating. Thirsting Roots I love, just to find a land or proliferate. You love to see it. Basic land. Kinkerbloom has that nice option. It can just, hit an artifact, destroy target enchantment, or proliferate for that 1 cost, and it's just a nice 3/2. What a great option for a card. Really cool. Palm Bright Druid has an option for the 1/1 counter or the proliferate for a 1-time instance. And then Whatley's Raptor will just do the proliferate. So I just settled on proliferate, guys. Like, I am all in on the proliferate with this card. I think we were kind of debating like earlier, like to run like the Palm Bright Druid and Whatley's, or like maybe just one of them. But I'm cool. I'm just going to run all the proliferates. I just am very fond of the proliferate in general. I think they're just very, very strong portions of Arwen and her game plan in general. I think you're going to really want to emphasize the proliferate. So you've got the Proud Pack Rhino. That was a one-time thing. This is a new homie from Final Fantasy. This is amazing because you're going to add a counter on when your non-token creatures come in, which is great for your counter synergy and make your creature stronger. And then in addition, for 1 generic mana tap, proliferate X times, where X is the number of non-token creatures you control that enter this turn. So that could be an instance of 2 creatures on sometimes. And if we're going to do that, we're probably going to have a good game pretty soon, because that's a lot of proliferation. And there's an art to actually doing these type of things. And I actually got called out in a video recently, like by playing horrendously in that way. I watched the video back, and I did miss out on a lot of like sequencing things. So you might be surprised about like how much you can maximize out of this like archetype. It is true, like you really want to kind of lay out the fact that planeswalkers are kind of important, and you want to kind of get those down probably before you start proliferating your things, because as you proliferate, you're going to want to have your permanents down in general. You don't want to miss out on missing counters, right? So, for instance, let's imagine a card like an Ajani, and this particular Ajani comes onto the battlefield, and then it has a +1, right? That +1 adds a 1/1 counter to a creature. So you're probably going to want to do those options first before dropping your proliferate creature that's going to have like a 1-time proliferate, because you're basically going to get another instance of a counter on your planeswalker and a counter on your creature. So just try not to lose out on a value. Just kind of like, kind of just take your time, like make sure you're getting your permanence down, make sure you're exercising your state bait actions to maximize all the counters you can get on your stuff and what proliferate does. Because proliferate is kind of a one-time thing. You proliferate and it adds a counter to all your things, all the counters that are already based there. So if I have a 1/1 counter on this creature, and for instance, that's fine. If I just have a 1/1 counter on this creature and I proliferate, it will go to a 3/4. So it's just like a one-time thing. It's just going to do it that one instance, and it will do it to your squad in general for all the counters, the different counters they have on them. So here's Pure, the Imaginative Rascal, and really interesting card in general. This will put a counter on your team, and for any time that a counter would be put on one of your permanents. So for instance, let's say we have Pure on the battlefield, and then we play Arwen out of our command zone. Arwen will enter with an additional indestructible counter, which we really love. That's really the gold about this, is that it will see any counter, any type of counter that's put on something, it will just plus it by 1, which is really interesting. So that is not exclusive to 1/1 counters. It will also include like your indestructible counters from Arwen. So just a really nice option to have this come down before Arwen hits the battlefield, and then accrue the extra indestructible counter, or as we're accruing indestructible counters, play this later in the game, and as we proliferate more, we'll just get an extra instance of proliferate, because it will add an additional counter once the counter is put on one of our things. So just kind of like a doubling up. Well, I wouldn't say doubling up, but just kind of an added instance of counters being put on something. Lae'zel is also similar to this. She's just really great in doing the similar function. If you would put 1 or more counters on a creature or planeswalker you control, or on yourself, put that many +1 of each kind of those counters on that permanent or player instead. Really interesting creatures in general, very strong, and they're not available in Brawl. So They seem really cool, so I cannot wait to take those for a spin. In addition, you have a card like Vorinclex, and Vorinclex is also Vorinclex is a doubling up of permanence. So whereas Lae'zel and Pier are a single instance of putting an additional counter on your stuff, Vorinclex, in fact, would say if you put one or more counters on a permanent or player, put twice that many of each of those counters on that permanent or player instead. So basically, it will double up your planeswalkers. It's like a doubling season like that. It's an amazing card. If an opponent would put one or more counters on a permanent or player, they put half that many of each kind of those counters on that permanent or player instead, rounded down. So also your opponent's like things will basically like not accelerate in their counters. They'll basically be rounded down, which is really interesting. So it's really interesting card in general, and it like kind of poops on planeswalkers in that way. Just a really nasty thing. Um, Really nasty card. So I love to see Vorinclex. I did get into Forgotten Ancient. This is kind of recommended in a past video, so I'm just kind of including it, and I think it's really swell, and I can't wait to take it for a spin. It just seems very commander minded. It's going to be accruing counters as players cast spells, and then we can dish those counters out to our homies as we please at the beginning of our upkeep, which is actually really cool. Because if you think about it, like if you have a card like, Lae'zel on the battlefield, and you're just distributing counters, you are doing the instance of putting on counters on creatures. So you're just going to get another single instance of this. So let's say Forgotten Ancient picks up two counters, over the course of the opponent's turns, or if just to say for that. So it becomes a 2/5, and then we just distribute those counters, on Lae'zel and like someone else. That 1/1 counter will turn into equate to two, instead of just one. So it's like just basically getting that single instance, and it's just you can just spread that out and just get more instances of strength on your creatures. So it's very cool. Bristly Bill is that really nice 2-spot creature from Outlaws of Thunder Junction. Whenever land enters battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on target creature. Fantastic. And for 5, double the number of 1/1 counters on each creature you control. Just really appropriate at the 2-spot to have such a powerful card. Like it is very powerful. And this is what we mean by the creature focus meta, like a 2-mana creature that does so many things. Even that effect, that mana sink is really strong. Double the number of 1/1 counters on each creature control. That's very strong. Very dangerous card. Very very targeted card, I would say. So again, whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on target creature, which is just crazy. The lands are just going to come on the battlefield. It's just simply going to be easy to buff up our creatures. Skycath Cub similarly has that same bristly bill effect, but it will also double up counters if it's the second time a land has entered the battlefield this turn. On that particular creature, it will double the counters. So that's pretty nuts, right? Invasion of Gobekhan is a really cool card. It's actually a battle. And what is really cool is that you just defeat this battle, and then you get basically a sacrificable permanent that will give your creatures hexproof and indestructible to end of turn. In addition, if you don't sacrifice it, each of your attacking creatures get a 1/1 buff at end of turn if they attacked. So just a really crazy card. And you get to look into somebody's hand. It's crazy. Innkeeper's Talent. Yeah, you get to look into someone's hand and tax them. So yeah, crazy card. Here's Innkeeper's Talent, and this one is just really nice. It's going to put a 1/1 counter on a target creature you control at beginning of combat, and then we level it up for 1. Permanents you control with counters them have ward 1, so to target them it costs one more to target them on each instance. And then for 4, if you would put 1 or more counters on a permanent or player, put twice that many of each of those kinds of counters on that permanent or player instead. So yeah, this like another doubling season type of effect. And when we look at some of the planeswalkers, you'll kind of like see kind of like how powerful that can be in general when you double up counters for things entering the battlefield. And here's Collector's Cage. I really am fond of these cards that like will just persistently add counters onto things. This also has a nice hideaway function, so you can get to some of your bigger spells really nice for like our bigger top end spells overall, just to hide them away and then reach that criteria of having 3 or more creatures with different powers and simply casting it without paying its mana cost is very strong. Okay, so this would be, I believe, our last card that will like significantly like affect or put counters on things. I like Rishkar. It will just turn all our creatures that have counters on them to be able to add green mana, which is very nice. And it will also put on mana counters, 2 different counters when it enters the battlefield, so it can turn itself into a mana dork or other things into mana dorks, which is really nice. Here's the things that love to see you put counters on things, specifically 1/1 counters. So when Arwen does put that counter onto another creature, she puts the counter 1/1 counter on herself, or 1 power, 1 toughness increase, and also on the other creature. So this will just see that instance, and then it will give you an additional 1/1 counter on that creature as well. So that's nice. That's like a nice little doubling effect for 1 mana. Hardened Scale is fantastic. Conclave Mentor will also do this as well. If 1 or more 1/1 counters will be put on a creature control, that many plus 1/1 counters are put on that creature instead. Very nice. Branching Evolution is that twice effect. So if 1 or more 1/1 counters will be put on a creature control, twice that many 1/1 counters are put on that creature instead. So that's like in an instance when we have like things kind of adding additional counters at the same instance, we're going to get more counters at once. So I guess the best way to kind of see this is like the newer card Ouroboros, which can add more counters at once, more 1/1 counters at once. You would simply you would add twice that many counters. So if you added 2 1/1 counters at once, it would double that to 4, which is nice. That's a nice little effect. So Branching Evolution is very cool. Here's Kami of Whispered Hopes. This one is also, we'll see, the benefit of putting additional counters onto something will add another counter. So really cool card once again. And then we'll add X-Men of any one color, where X is Kami of Whispered Hopes power. Kodama the West Tree is really nice. If our creatures have a counter onto them in any sort and they deal combat damage, we get to search our library for a basic land and put it on the battlefield. It's fantastic. Here's Incubation Druid. If this has a counter on it, a 1/1 counter specifically on it at 3 mana of any type. You can also do a mana sink and do the counter itself, but usually we'll just add it in a different way to start producing 3 mana with this for 2 mana. It's really nice. Gyre Sage also will just accrue counters on herself as well, as we have creatures that are more powerful coming on the battlefield, and as we proliferate, we'll continue to add more green for each 1/1 counter on the Gyre Sage, so that's really nice. Fanatic Aronas just gets turned on very easily. This thing will just be producing 4 mana for you. It will help you get into like your Turn Timber Symbiosis and Vorinclex much easier. It's very reliable for 2 mana. And you have a couple mana dorks, just your bread and butter, like a Birds of Paradise and Delight Halfling. We kind of went like halfway with the creatures because we emphasized the board wipes for this deck. It's a really cool departure for me. So we definitely limited our kind of our emphasis on like, Llanowar Elf, Elvish Mystic, Absence Pilgrim. We lightened them up. We opted for more nice 2 mana dorks and for more board wipes, and really kind of want to see what happens. Here's Soul Ring, just a nice Soul Ring here. Nothing too crazy. And then a little bit of card advantage here. So just have like some nice little card advantage. Esper Sentinel, Sylvan Library, the Dust Legion Duelist is a nice option because it accrues counters to draw. Terra Symbiosis also will do this on a turn basis. As long as you're continuing to put counters on, you'll be drawing. If you put more at once, you'll be drawing more for each of those. Like how many 1/1 counters at once you put on a particular creature for a turn. So if I do like a Ouroboros and I put on 4 counters at once to my squad, that will see those 4 counters at once, and I'll draw 4 cards. So it's really nice. Exemplar of Light is just a really cool option here. As long as we're gaining life, we're simply going to draw. And I also want you to remember that some of these cards, you don't need to put the counters on it. You just need to like swing with your lifelink Arwen, gain some life. The life will be seen by the exemplar. You'll get that counter, and then you'll draw. It's beautiful. Here's Season of Gathering. Just another crazy kind of like one-sided board wipe thing. You know, if we have like opponents that are playing like really heavy with their artifacts or enchantments, we can simply just like wipe those away. And then we can draw a bunch of cards based on our high power creatures. I love this card. Rishkar's expertise also to just draw a ton of cards. See our big power creatures because we're going to have them, and just also get that nice five mana free cast. And then here's like kind of like the last little juicer here, guys. So this is what you're just going to really like. These really interesting play lines that will just get you lethal wins with Arwen. A card like Skrelv and a card like Erdan. So Erdan is really interesting, right? So this thing will basically grant hexproof. It's different from the Mother runes and the Giver of runes because you can still target this with your own stuff and still give protection from a particular color. Why is that important? Well, if my opponent is playing mono white, I can give Arwen the ability to be hexproof. Let's see. Another target creature control gains 1 and hexproof from that color till end of turn. How have I done this before? Oh, it was green. Okay. I think that's how I did it. All right. Basically, the gist is that you'll give protection or to a certain color, right? And it looks like it does hexproof from that color. Right. So we can still target because it's hexproof. It's like a big mind brain, guys. It's okay. I'm right. Okay, I did this right. So yes, we can still target with our stuff. It's just hexproof. That's different from Shroud. So hexproof means we can still target it. So what we're going to do is we're against a mono white opponent. We have Skrelv. We're going to give Arwen hexproof from that color until end of turn, and it can't be blocked by creatures of that turn. So we did that, right? So that's fine. So Arwen now has hexproof from that color from our opponents, but we can still target it with our white creatures, and simply they cannot block it with their white creatures at all. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take a card like Erdan, and Arwen is going to have those 2 additional counters. So we're going to move to combat, and now we're going to give her double strike. And Arwen is just simply going to get in for 21 commander lethal. She's going to be strong. Like, if you do the right thing and move up those counters, you're proliferating, you're building your squad, you're using the cards like Branching Evolution and Hardened Scales, you're simply just going to get there. So this is a nice card because it'll put a counter on a creature when it comes on the battlefield. So that's nice, that one-time thing. And then whenever you attack, target attacking creature will 1/1 counter on it, gains first strike. If that creature has 2 or more 1/1 counters on it, it gains double strike. So that's a really important part now. So like if we co-opt this with Skrelv, like I just mentioned, and your opponent is just having white creatures, we can protect it with Arwen, get in, so she gets in unblocked, and then give her double strike. And then we're in for lethal. So that's just a really cool little trait. Here's a Johnny, Caller of the Pride. And this one is also one of those really sneaky ones. Basically, the text on this one, you're going to want to do that target creature gains flying and double strike until end of turn. And you can imagine that's pretty good for Arwen because she's just going to get in with a double strike and really hurt somebody. Similarly, the Leyline Axe, really cool option. You can just basically play this from your hand without paying its mana cost. If it's in your opening hand, you just reveal it. Really crazy. And then for that equip 3, equip creature gets 1/1 that has double strike and trample. So that's a really nice effect as well. And double strike and trample will do very well with Arwen. Here's a Johnny, the Strength of the Pride, kind of just like an interesting card. Like you'll simply notice that you'll have like 80 life in this deck, and you'll be able to play that 0 effect and just basically exile all the artifacts and creatures on your opponent board. You'll have to exile a Johnny too, but it's just really, really strong. Like a really, really nasty Cyclonic Rift in that manner. Here's Angel of Destiny, and just one of those other types of win cons, right? Where you're simply just going to have the 15 or more life. You're going to attack in with this, this particular creature. And simply, if you attacked a particular player with this creature and you have 50 more life than your starting life total, the attached player loses the game. So just a really strong win con. Worldly Tutor, just to kind of get in some action to your creatures. I'd say it's probably going to hit your Ouroboros mostly, more often than not. You're probably going to tutor for your Ouroboros so you can start getting those counters and really kind of getting your squad strong. Sarah Ascendant kind of just opens up a lot of like really obnoxious opening hands that you can have. You can go like because this will just come in as a 6/6 for 1 mana, so you can get into a fight rigging pretty fast. That will just enable a fight rigging type of effect where you're just hiding away. You're looking at 5 cards of your library. Simply not. It's just going to be good for you in that instance, and you're going to be able to be paying that particular card. It's just a lot of value. Great Henge similarly will get turned on by the Sarah's Ascendant really fast, and you can have a henge really soon, right, guys? Turn 3 henges are not the worst thing in the world, are they? And then we just have some other single target removal I want to mention for lands. You have your Bridgeworks Battle, Witch Enchanter, and then you have some nice single target removal. Aura Shards, it's really nice. Beseiju as a land seems good. I like Xenarchan as a new land too, to make that really strong creature that is counter based. So it puts a 1/1 counter on it for each land you control. I like a Castle Garenprig as a nice tech land for that nice little acceleration, an additional mana for 5. So you get 6 and net 6. You can get your Vorinclex a little bit faster. Disciple of Freyalise can get into a little bit faster that way too. Just some nice value. Mary's Call just for some nice angels here. Some nice options for your hideaway cards. So maybe you'll just have a chance to hit something, rather than not. And maybe just keep in these really sweet lands that will, perhaps get some value for you. And they usually do. So that was the deck, guys. I appreciate you joining me today. Let's get Arwen at the front. Make sure you like and subscribe. Thanks for joining me, guys, today. And let me know what you guys are thinking about Arwen right now. She's just great card. Beautiful deck here. Beautiful Selesnya stuff. I think I kind of settled in on this. I'm glad because it was kind of a rough one to kind of get through, to be honest. And it seems to be as enough garbage is talked about Selesnya, maybe because it's just the cards are just simply very strong together. But there's definitely some layers to it. I think there's definitely some sequencing layers, and definitely some things that you're gonna want to take. You're gonna want to read the cards. You're gonna want to take a moment and kind of read your cards and just kind of take it slow. Take it slow. Make sure you're putting your permanents on the battlefield, getting plussing, getting those planeswalker abilities going. First, to exercise and add the counters where they need to go. I think Ajani really emphasizes that. You don't want to basically have a proliferate card in your hand and play your proliferate card first before playing Ajani, because you'd be missing out on adding a loyalty counter and also adding a 1/1 counter on that instance. And that would be kind of a disaster. So yeah, you want to definitely kind of milk out the value and kind of making sure you're getting your permanents down, and also just making sure you're reading your cards and knowing them, how they work with your commander. All right, guys. Well, I hope you have a great day. Thanks for joining me today. Lots more to come. We have lots of giveaways. Just comment so I can track you, and we'll do a party soon. The faster you subscribe and share with your friends, the faster the party will happen.